Okay, so this point of the video is to kind of show you how to, I've worked on this a little bit longer, but to show you how to transition one part of a form into another part of a form. For example, this is also looks like a wine bottle on its side, and it's transitioning to the neck of the bottle and slowly curving into the end of the bottle here. But this is the form I'm drawing on its side. We can all recognize it as this form here, but it's on its side and it's going back in space in perspective. In order to create volume, these lines here are going through the form called cross contours. Cross contours go through the form and they actually can kind of cross each other. So when I draw some of these form, or the sticky paper part here, that would be a cross contour in that direction. Creates volume. You do want to do that at some point, but I'm going to show you how I achieve this, and you kind of see the different colors I'm using. I'm only using green, blue, and red here. I keep them sharp. And what I'm doing here is, you can see this design. So this is basically just a 2-point perspective rectangle, similar to the rectangle here. And I'm going to show you something real fast. In green, I will draw the circle, just so we understand this. I went through this in the last video. I'll do it again. So these 4 points stay the same. They remain where they are when they intersect this line here. These 4 corners are the ones that you half and then you half again. And when you're halving this, you just do a visual assessment. Half it once and then half it again. Half and half. It's really important that you just take your time and do this because every line is different. After you do that, you're going to get a ruler and you're going to connect those. Do not forget to do this. Do not just draw a curvilinear line in there and hope for the best. The whole point of this project is to have this to look mechanical, like a mechanical drawing, because you're making these ridiculous connections of utilitarian forms that necessarily don't belong together. And what pulls this off is how it's drawn. So you can kind of see how mechanical this looks. You can see all the cross lines, you can see the construction lines, you can see the form itself. There's transparency there. All right, so once I did this, I have my circle. I can always go back in and draw my circle. And I'll do this in red. And I'm basically just adding a little bit, curving around. And you might make some adjustments later on. Basically, it's going to look like that. So that's the circle going back in perspective. Now, this is how to create this point here. See how this curve comes down here? I'm not worried about this part here that extends out. I can show you that in a second. What I'm trying to draw here is this guy, right? So I'm going to extend out from the center point, which is right here. That exists right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll put a little dot there. That's the center of this huge rectangle. I did this a little differently when I was doing my other video. I just added a section, but here I'm just going to show you something that's the less lines. It's easier to teach. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my green, sharpen it because I'm working with small lines here, and getting my big ruler. Remember, I'm using my vanishing point here. So what I want to do is maybe just quickly sketch out the circle. How big you want the circle to be. And you kind of see I'm lightly drawing this circle. And basically it's going to be about this big, which if you want to get specific, it's maybe like 1/3 of the size. So I'm just guesstimating and be like, that looks good to me. So after I draw the circle in, I'm going to take the top of that point and mark it. I'm going to take the top of that point, I'm going to connect it to the left vanishing point. I'm going to draw a line straight across. Once I draw a line straight across, it intersects when I originally crossed the corners, where it intersects that line right here, drop a line down. Same thing with this one, where this line intersects this diagonal, drop a line down. Now, see where this line intersects this diagonal here? If you connect it over to the left vanishing point, it should, in theory, all meet at the same time. It's a little off, but that's not a big deal. That is your square that you're going to pull out. What I mean by pulling out is I'm going to connect these four corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the right vanishing point and extend it that way. The distance will be determined later. I'm just going to throw 4 lines out. And again, I'm connecting it to the right vanishing point. Okay, so these are 4 lines out. Basically, if you look here where the form starts to curve, the distance between here and here is what I'm trying to figure out. The distance between here and here. So it's not that big of a distance. So if I were to add here, I think I could probably get away with, if this form kind of did this, it went here. I think I can get away with it being somewhat like right here. What I'm trying to do is just like extend it out a little bit, this square. And what I'm going to do is, I think I want it out about this much. So I just mark this one line here, and I'm going to take that line, and I'm going to use that, or that mark, to put all the other information in. So it goes here, see where it hits this line here, I draw a line straight down. And again, there's so many lines here that you guys can get very confused. I'm going to take a line over, back to the vanishing point, and then I'm going to take a line from here straight down. So basically, I just extended this rectangle out in this direction. Now, for my own sanity, I'm going to erase everything inside of this square that I created, so I could see what the heck I'm doing. Even though there might be some important parts in there, I'm not really concerned about that at the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cross my corners. You'll be doing this a lot because there's a lot of cylindrical forms that you probably found that are utilitarian. You may be using this quite a bit. So you can kind of see that I did the same approach as I did here. And what I'm going to do, I didn't need to draw the circle there because I wasn't concerned with it. I was pulling it out here, and I'm going to draw the circle here. So you have to do the same exact approach in terms of go from center. Remember, these 4 points stay the same. This stays the same. And I like to put dots there so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And then you go from center, 3/4. And this is super small, so it's kind of hard to see. Center, 3/4, center, 3/4. And again, you're going to connect this with straight line construction. All these little points. I'm going to show you how important this is later because you want to have evidence of these points there because eventually you're going to connect it with these points behind it, and I'll explain that. So there, you see my circle that I created. It's becoming a little bit more distorted as it gets closer to the vanishing point. Not a big deal. And then right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line around, or I'm sorry, draw the circle just like I did before. And I'm doing this in red just so you can kind of see what the heck I'm doing. And because it's smaller, it's probably just easier to wing it. Okay, the next move I'm going to make, I'm going to grab my green. I wonder if I should grab my blue just so you can kind of see what the heck I'm doing. I'll use my blue line here. I'm going to connect the high point here to the high point here. I basically have a mini-me of this, and I'm going to connect the same points. So see this point here? I'm going to connect it to the point right there. And then the next point, which is the one right here, I'm going to connect it to the point right there. So I have to really pay attention to what I'm connecting it to, because if you forget or connect it to the wrong thing, you'll figure out later that you made a mistake and you have to go back. So I'm going to connect this one to that point. Now, I could connect this side point to the side point here, but I can't see it. It's on the other side, so it's not really that important at the moment. Connect this point to that point there. And again, it can get confusing. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to connect this bottom point to the bottom point here. Oh yeah, you kind of see it. It's right there at the bottom. So you can kind of see that I've somewhat mimicked the same thing here, but this has more of a curvilinear element to it. This is what I call straight line construction. The only curves are the circle. I just put that in. I didn't really have to put it in yet, but I did put that in. The other thing I did is I drew a circle here and I connected these points to the points back there. So eventually you can do that as well. That's pretty simple. I don't have to do that right now. I just want to show you how to round these. So actually, it is important for me to do, the more I think about it, to draw that shape in the back. I'm just going to do it really quickly. Trying to make sure my line is perfectly vertical. Okay. I'm just going to bring it. The reason I had to do this, I'm going to take this line out so I don't confuse myself, because I'm cleaning up that square. The reason I had to do this because I do have to connect this to the back so it looks like the drawing that I'm making. I'm going to use my green, connect my corners, find the center. That finds the center. I'm going to make a line that's vertical. And I'm going to make a line that goes to the left vanishing point that's parallel to the top and the bottom, because they always lead to the left vanishing point. Once you do that, you do the half-half thing. You'll get fast at this once you do it 1,000 times. And then you're going to connect. I like to use my small ruler for this one because it's not like handling a wind sail. So I'm going to connect it all the way around. But again, say take your time doing this, because if you don't do the half-half thing in the right spot, it's going to look a little funky. And you can see how these different circles are changing in terms of their perspective. So I'm going to take my red. Go all the way around. And I do recommend, this is just a piece of printing paper, do a couple tests on printing paper and get your system down so you understand it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my most exterior parts. I'm going to do this with the green. Most exterior parts is the highest point of the red, highest point of the red. I'm just going to connect them at the moment. That is the exterior of this round form. Notice I started off with a rectangle and it shrinks up. So then I go with the exterior of this round form, the furthest part out, and then I connect them. So you can kind of see this form going back in space. Now, the other thing I'm going to connect, as I talked about, but I'm actually going to do it, is I'm going to connect these points, this point with that same matching point in the back, the side line. So I'm just going to connect those. I'm going to connect this one with that one. I'm going to connect this top one with this top one here. And that's enough. So now it feels like it's a geometric kind of planal form going back in space, but we're going to change that a little bit. Now, if you look at this here, this bends, this kind of bends out. This line goes straight. So that would mean that this line, I'm just going to draw a line, currently as I have it is as if this line goes straight through it. And I have to add this curve. I have to add this curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a curve here. And the curve kind of changes. It gets a little bigger of a curve as you go away from the form, or away from this line. See this line here? It's almost a perfect straight line. So I don't really have to curve that. It's basically straight. It's not going to curve in any direction. I'll explain this. This one's going to curve a little bit more. This one's going to remain the same. This one's going to curve in the opposite direction towards me. This one's going to again curve a little bit more in this direction. And then there's a bottom one that curves out too. So you kind of see how I made this volumetric form almost like a bullet, if you will. Now, everything's meeting at a point right here, and that doesn't really happen here. It's a consistent curve all the way until it starts to hit the straight line. So what I do at this point is I take this red line and then I just like gently carve off that little corner. So you can kind of see how and that was just a subtle curve, a subtle round, not much of a change. And then it blends right back into these forms. And if you want to use your red pencil to describe the exterior later on, you can. That's fine. And then to add this point here, basically all you do is you take your ruler and you extend this rectangle again, which I already did. Not rectangle, see this little square here? Extend it even further to as much as you think you need to. So what I would do is like, so this is the side plane here, and you can see it exists right here. I'm thinking like maybe right here is big enough. So so that means there's gonna be like a circle right here. And I think that's a little too big. I don't know, maybe I'll go back a little bit more. I think it's a little too big. So what I mean by going back a little bit more is I'm gonna take a line here and drop it. And then I'm gonna run this over to the other side using the vanishing point. And then I'm gonna drop it down again. And I'm gonna take it to the other side using the vanishing point. So you can see, oops, something's a little weird here. What happened? Hold on a minute. This is the bottom line. If this goes here, this has to do this. Oh, that makes sense. I mistook the back line. See, I'm glad I'm taping this because you can see my mistakes that I make. There we go. So there's the square I'm looking for. What you do is you do the same thing. You cross your corners, you find your center, you make your circle. I'm just gonna do this really quickly. You make your circle in the red through this whole process, and then you connect it here, and then you round this out. And then you round this out. And you kind of see how I got the same exact form here, and I did that in half an hour possibly. What you learn from doing this, you apply it to the other forms. For example, this is really simple. This is going to be these kind of like 10-speed bicycle tires I'm going to have on the side. Maybe I'll just put an axle going through it or something, I'm not sure. And then the other object I have for here is going to be right here. And that is, I'm gonna maybe take the extension part off, and maybe I'll start here, or maybe I'll start here, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna start there. And that's just gonna start here and then go in that direction. I already have the center point, and I can always make a larger box. If I can make a smaller square, I can always make a larger square using those center cross points. I'll explain that in the next video, but for now, this should help you out a lot.